Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fluently Forward. Today, we are going to once again be doing another episode that focuses a little bit on Jeffrey Epstein because I have been obsessed with the case since 2000 and something. And why I want to talk about it today is because there's a new movie out called Blink Twice, and it's directed by Zoe Kravitz. Channing Tatum is in it. People are talking about it because, they're together and she was the director and he's the main actor and like blah, blah, blah. It's getting buzz. As you can tell, I'm talking about Epstein in reference to this movie. And I feel like it's so fascinating that It Ends With Us comes out with Blake Lively and they're like, wear your florals, come to see this movie. And it's about domestic violence and domestic abuse. I watched some of the clips on TikTok from someone who was filming it in the movie theater. Wow, hard to watch scenes in it like that. Spoiler alert, but there's one part where the domestic violence is happening and Blake Lively's character keeps saying the same word over and over again. And it was, I feel like such a pussy saying triggering, but like it just really was. It wasn't fun florals. And it's interesting because Zoe Kravitz and Channing Tatum are out here promoting Blink Twice, and it is kind of like a thriller / horror, and there are little bits that kind of tell you about it. For example, Taylor Swift recently promoted the movie on her Instagram story, and she did include like a tiny trigger warning at the end. But Zoe and Channing Tatum are like playing with puppies, doing different interviews when they talk about it, and as somebody who saw the movie myself in theaters a couple days ago, and maybe this is because I'm not that great with horror movies. There were 2 scenes in it specifically that were very sexually violent, and it wasn't a hint of something, it wasn't like the door closes and then you infer what happens. You saw everything that was happening. I guess I could say it was well acted in the sense that it like made me sick to my stomach. We'll talk about this more when we talk about what the movie is about, but I just find that interesting, both with Blink Twice and It Ends With Us. Like, you really need people in the movie theater to watch it that badly that you're not going to tell people what's going on? Why? And also, what more do Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have to do? Do they have to fuck each other on the red carpet to let the world know? We would like some rom-coms, please. We would like some rom-coms and we would like some comedies. Who doesn't like a comedy? Who doesn't like a kiss and a laugh? I just don't understand why all of these movies, like, I feel my cortisol levels raising when I watch it. And I just like, I don't know, maybe I'm being annoying, but call me crazy after a long day of work and the stressors that you face in life. I just kind of want to giggle. I kind of want to giggle and kick my feet when I watch a movie. But anyway, so we're going to be talking about the movie Blink Twice. I'll give like a general synopsis of it though there will be spoilers and, in case you want to skip to just the Epstein stuff, but there's going to be kind of spoilers throughout, but I won't tell you all of the big twists, just some. Then we're going to talk about the Epstein references throughout the movie. And we're just going to talk about more on Epstein in general, because I'm obviously obsessed with the case. And there's many different niche things I was noticing throughout the movie that I think just kind of the average person on the sidewalk who knows about Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't know. So I'm going to clue you into those. Then we're going to talk about other billionaire sickos who own islands and have allegations against them. Spoiler, it's not just one. It's actually most of them. It's crazy. We're also going to talk about the Bill Cosby references in the movie. Other references in the movie, kind of like conspiracy related. And then I'm just going to end by shouting out different people that aren't behind bars yet that were related to the Jeffrey Epstein case and why I'm mad about it. All right, so this is going to be a movie synopsis. If you don't want super heavy duty spoilers, you could fast forward, but there are going to be spoilers throughout the episode. Okay, so the movie starts, we see Frida. She is our main character, and she's this cute girl with like animals painted on her nails. She's like a nail tech, but her and her friend Jess are kind of poor. They're catering this event, and at the event is this fancy billionaire named Slater King, and he's played by Channing Tatum. And he's hosting this benefit for his charity that he runs, but he only started the charity because he got in like hot water with the public a year ago. And they're catering the event, but then they kind of sneak in as regular people, meet Slater King, flirt a little bit. And then he invites her and the friend. He's like, hey, I have this island. Me and the whole crew are going there for a couple of days. Do you want to come? And they're like, yes, let's do it. So they go over to the island. And at first it seems like it's all great. They're lounging by the pool every day. They're drinking champagne, smoking weed, having nice dinners, doing drugs after dinner, hanging out and partying. And it's kind of like rinse and repeat for a few days of them doing that. But then things start to get weird. They just kind of feel like there's some stuff I'm not remembering. Like she wakes up one day and there's dirt under her fingernails, or she spilled wine on her dress. And then the next day, like the wine is gone. And she's like, I don't remember changing my dress. So like, I don't know what happened. But every day they're wearing these clothes, spraying themselves with perfume, just using all of these cosmetics in the bath. And then this maid basically comes in and offers Frida, our main character, a shot of venom juice, snake venom. There's like all these snakes on the island. She takes this shot of snake venom juice, whatever the fuck, and her memories slowly start coming back. And she realizes that all of the girls are forgetting their memories because the flowers on the island are everywhere. And the flowers are making them forget their memory. It's on their pillows. It's on their hair. They keep giving flowers to the girls. There's perfume that they give to everyone. And the perfume is made out of the flowers and it makes you forget your memories, basically. The antidote to this flower is the snake venom. So the minute she takes one of the shots, her memory starts to come back. She gives the shots to the other girls. Their memory starts to come back. It's in this moment that we see a flashback of what has been happening to them every night. And it is a very hard to watch sexual assault scene. And it's not, sometimes I feel like in Game of Thrones, like they kind of like allude to something bad happening. Look, they're never fun to watch. But it was awful. Like it's very physical. They're being chased. They're being tied down. They're screaming. There's horror in their eyes. Like it was really, really, really hard to watch. And it just, not only does it upset me, but it also really pisses me off because like, we don't need to see that. Like truly anything that you put on the big screen, you are glamorizing it just by the pure act of it being on the screen and having these A-list actors act it out, and you know, you paid a ticket to go watch it in the theater. Like there is this element of stuff to it. I almost feel like, you know, even the show You, we've talked about this with this might have been a Patreon episode, but we talked about this. You empathize with a stalker in the show because you're in his head and the light is hitting his cheekbone, and it is kind of putting him in a good light. And I just think we don't need the super graphic scenes like that, because I would say basically all of the women in the theater, which by the way, it was only me and someone else. I don't think the movie's doing that well because I was like the only one in the theater. Thank God somebody else joined me. Anyway, all of the women in the audience are going to be like, fuck this. This is awful. Most of the men in the audience are going to be like, fuck this. This is awful. And then a few fucked up percentages of people are going to go, this is great. I'm aroused. I want to see more of it. And look, maybe that's me being like a little bit too harsh, but like, what the fuck is the point of it? Like you could have gotten the message across without like, anyway, I haven't really fully formed my thoughts on it, but all I'm going to say is, I drove home and I was like not okay for the rest of the night. And I watched some pretty dark stuff. I was just like, I don't know. I didn't like it. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens at the end, but that's kind of all you need to know for us to be talking about the Epstein part of it. So obviously I watched that movie. I come out of the theater. I feel like I'm going to vomit, but I go, Jeffrey Epstein. It's a movie about a billionaire who brings girls to an island that he owns and abuses them. It's Jeffrey Epstein, you know? Now, shockingly, Zoe Kravitz, who I think she wrote this movie and I think she also directed it, and she said it's been a 7-year process. So she's been in these different interviews because people were like, oh my God, was this a conversation about Epstein? Was it about Me Too? Was it about race? Because every girl except for one on the island is a person of color. And Zoe was basically saying in these interviews, like, no, like I really thought Quote, the subject matter is so ancient, it's power, the oppression of women. It's the most basic things in the world. I'm talking about the Garden of Eden and the serpent of knowledge. I'm starting way back at the beginning, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, the culture and characters and things keep changing, so you kind of have to adapt the script to that. And then she says here, at the same time, nothing was changing. These stories would break about these people and everyone wants to act all shocked. And my whole thing was, you're shocked that powerful men are abusing their power? This is a shock to you? And it's been so important to make it clear that this is not about anyone in particular. And boiling down what we're really talking about in this film to two people is problematic. And look, I understand that she wants to, no creative person in Hollywood, this is the theme that I see in all these episodes I do. No artist likes being compared to another artist. No movie director wants their movie to be compared to another movie. Like, everybody wants to think that their shit doesn't stink and they're doing something that's never been done before. And, her being like, no, it's actually about the Garden of Eden and like blah, blah, blah. So look, I get that. But before we move on to her quote about Jeffrey Epstein, I just want to focus in on this quote that she says, where she goes, these stories would break about these people and everyone wants to act all shocked. And my whole thing was, you're shocked that powerful men are abusing their power? This is a shock to you? Yeah, it is. I'm shocked anytime someone gets raped. Like, I'm shocked anytime someone gets abused. And when you uncover a story, for example, Jeffrey Epstein, and it's a decades-long international trafficking scheme that involves the United States government, the Israeli government, the British royal family, fucking all of these tech billionaires, the governor of New Mexico, like, let off in Florida by the courts because Alexander Acosta was told Jeffrey Epstein belongs to intelligence. Yeah, I'm shocked. You weren't? I just feel like, and maybe it's people being cynical or nihilistic. When the Jeffrey Epstein case happened, there's a lot of people that for some reason their first instinct is like, well, that isn't shocking. And that just kind of breaks my heart a little bit. I've talked about here on this podcast before how my high school history teacher was a pedophile. And when he finally was caught and arrested, this was like years after we graduated college, I remember being in a group chat with some of my high school friends and they were like, yeah, I could have guessed that. Like, everyone knew it was happening. Do you have to be so flippant about like heinous things that are going on? Like, if you really knew, like, then you should have done something. You know what I mean? Like, I had just heard whispers and kind of rumors about it. But yeah, even Zoe Kravitz saying there, like, these stories would break about these people and everyone wants to act all shocked. And maybe this is a Hollywood thing because everyone knew what Harvey Weinstein was up to. And then when it came out, it was like nobody knew anything. Oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea he was doing this. And then the minute Harvey Weinstein is behind bars, they want to be like, interview me. Because I knew, because my boyfriend protected me from him once. So I kind of knew. I was a little bit in the know. And it's like, bitch, you can't have it both ways. Either you're in the know and you're not shocked when it happens, which means you need to proactively be helping to take these people down, or you're shocked when it happens because it's a horrifying thing to find out. So, maybe I'm kind of being a little bit nitpicky here, but for some reason, it just infuriates me. Like, there's just a personality type that whenever they hear about something tragic or whatever, they're like, well, I could have told you that was going to happen. I kind of knew it. I'm not shocked. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, I'm not jumping out of a cake. I'm telling you about something heinous that happened and you should have a little bit of empathy around it, Anyway, obviously I know like Zoe Kravitz isn't the person abusing all of these people. I just am always a little bit confused by that mindset. So anyway, this interview that she does with IndieWire continues, and the guy asks her, yeah, I read that you were not aware of Jeffrey Epstein and that whole controversy until you were already making the film. I wonder if saying that Slater is not inspired by anyone in particular brings forth how he could represent more of the monsters that the public is not so aware of. And Zoe says, yeah, and it's all a metaphor. It's not so literal. So that situation, the Epstein situation. That particular place and person, that documentary or whatever it was, came out not even halfway through writing Blink Twice. But again, I set this on an island because I wanted to isolate the characters and have them deal with this situation. I was thinking about, again, the Garden of Eden and the Lord of the Flies. And I'm not just talking about powerful men at that level. It could be your husband. It could be the man down the street that's following you home. It could be your boss, blah, 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 blah. So I get that. Like, I'm sure too, for maybe perhaps for legal reasons, she doesn't want to be like, yeah, this is a sprinkle of Jeffrey Epstein and a sprinkle of Bill Cosby or something. Remember when Lana Del Rey said that the song Cola was inspired by a Harvey Weinstein type of character? Now, obviously, that's insane because he was such a renowned rapist. But I suppose on the most good faith look at that quote, you could say, well, maybe she just thought he was some sort of rich guy in Hollywood and she wanted to write a love song about that guy. Now, it seems like anyone who is anyone knew what was going on with Harvey Weinstein. So it's insane to write a love song about that person. But I could understand how some people take inspiration from heinous things that happen, or maybe it makes you think about something else creatively. So perhaps Zoe Kravitz is like, well, I don't want to say like, yeah, this film's inspired by Jeffrey Epstein, because then it could kind of seem like a nod to him or an homage. And I'm sure she said this quote flippantly, and God, once again, I feel like I sound so like nitpicky and judgy, but I just am a little bit bothered when she goes, that situation with Epstein, that documentary or whatever it was. And once again, I just feel like it's not a documentary. It was the uncovering where the public had to admit that Alex Jones was right about something. This was like a huge deal that a billionaire pedophile island exists. And not only that it exists and it was used for decades, that 2 US presidents were buddy-buddy with this guy, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. That's an insane thing to have to take in. They were buddies with one of the most notorious sex trafficking pedophiles on earth, that he was part of the CIA, US government, potentially part of Mossad, Israeli government. Prince Andrew was with him. They were vacationing at the Queen's house, that cabin in the woods. So they're connected to the like US royalty. Les Wexner, CEO of Victoria's Secret, who sold his Upper East Side mansion to Jeffrey Epstein for like a fraction of the cost, was also involved with him. So now we know that he has ties to the Victoria's Secret models and that fucker over in France, whose name I'm forgetting, who also, Luc Brunel or something, but he also managed models, and Jeffrey Epstein was also abusing them. Like I said before, the fact that he was let off so easily from his trial in Florida because he belonged to intelligence. So not only is he sex trafficking girls, I'm going to get so banned from YouTube. Why am I even considering putting this on YouTube? Whatever. Not only is he sex trafficking girls on this island that very powerful people are coming to, but he belongs to intelligence. Like, it wasn't just a documentary. It's like an unraveling of everything. And not only is it a lid being blown the fuck off of a case, but it's also so important that it was blown off because we have proof. Remember, Amy Robach, the news anchor from ABC, saying, I had the story on Jeffrey Epstein 7 years ago, and ABC told me not to do it because they wanted to get Will and Kate for the royal wedding interview. So they shut the story down and blah, blah, blah. So like, there's all this proof that people have been covering up for him. Why? You know, like, anyway, so to me, I understand like you don't want your name in headlines with Jeffrey Epstein. But then I would also think, well, you're making a movie about a billionaire who's abusing girls on an island. There's going to be a connection. I don't know. Well, let's talk about the other connections other than just kind of like the big picture concept of what the movie is. One of the things that I noticed in the movie is Channing Tatum's character. He seems like a nice guy at the beginning. You know, he kind of seems a little unsure of himself. He says at one point when they're handing their phones away on the island, he goes, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And one of the tiny things about him is that he doesn't eat red meat. And I always find that interesting too, like this concept that, somebody could be like a serial killer, but they're also a vegetarian. Like you hear of little weird things like that happening sometimes. And when that happens in the movie, you go, oh my God, like he doesn't eat red meat. But it's not always a sign of somebody being good because, for example, you might not know this, but Jeffrey Epstein was actually sober, completely sober. There was a New York Magazine article / interview that people were talking about Epstein in, and they were talking about how close Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were really. And Lachlan Cartwright said, the Trump-Epstein dynamic is a red herring. Jose Lambient said, in Palm Beach, it's clear that Epstein had access to Mar-a-Lago without being a paying member, and that's something that Trump allows for acquaintances. And Vanessa Gregoriadis says, I've heard that they were close. Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump flew around on private planes with flocks of girls going wherever, whenever, Atlantic City, Virgin Islands, and during these jaunts, both were allegedly stone cold sober, which is just so weird. And yeah, I've just always found that insane. I think Trump is still sober to this day. Vicky Ward, she was an investigator of the Epstein case, I think over at Vanity Fair. She did like a lot of good investigative work on this. And she saw we're going to talk about this guy a little bit later, Jez Staley. He was this high up executive at JP Morgan Chase who was in close contact with Epstein. They sent very creepy emails to each other. But one of the code names that they would use allegedly for women or girls would be alcohol. And Jez Staley, if you look through all his communications with Jeffrey Epstein, there will be notes like, how did you like your white wine when you were here? And Jez would be like, oh my God, I love my white wine. Get me another bottle the next time I'm there. Or if he was going to be on Epstein's calendar for a meeting, one of the annotations would be like, have Jez's wine ready to go the minute he gets there. Have 2 wines on hand for Jez Staley. Just all of these weird things. And they would also talk back and forth about wine, and Vicky Ward noticed Jeffrey Epstein's sober, so why are they talking about white wine all the time, And she said, I think in an interview, quote, he told me, Epstein, that he thought drinking obscured people's thinking, and he also told me he made Ghislaine Maxwell stop drinking too. Of course, in hindsight, one can see that if you are running criminal sex trafficking enterprises and you don't want to get caught, it helps to stay focused. But Epstein also frequently talked in running metaphors and similes. When I began reporting on him, he said, quote, let's play chess. You be white, you get the first move. So creepy, so like Hollywood villain. What a dick. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. You know what? I already know what next week's episode is going to be, and it's going to be very fun and light. So we're just going to get through this for now. Another similarity in the movie is that when these girls get to the island, one of Slater's associates or assistants is this kind of middle-aged woman, and she runs around the house. She gets the girls towels. She's like, do you guys need anything else? Oh, like I'm running around. Like, by the way, like the generator is going to be off tonight. So like blah, blah, blah. Like she's keeping things together. Very similar to Ghislaine Maxwell. And you see this because in the movie, when one of the girls disappears, another girl runs up to this house mom and she's like, hey, have you seen Jess? Like, where is she? Blah, blah, blah. Confiding in her because she thinks that this older woman on the island can be trusted. And it's a good sign that Slater is a normal guy because he's, hanging out with this middle-aged woman and like, it's almost like a nice relationship that they have. It's on purpose, right? So Ghislaine Maxwell, we did a episode all about Jeffrey Epstein where my sister-in-law Haley McNamara came on, and she works for this organization that basically deals with sex trafficking. And she was saying that a lot of pimps, for lack of a better word, I believe it was like a bottom bitch, or that was the term. And that's basically the girl who is a little bit older, has maybe aged out of the age where the abuse is taking place, but she is still helping it happen, basically, and like putting things together so that way it can happen. And it just makes you, because, when you're watching the movie before you find out that everything's crazy, you see that older woman on the island and you too, as a viewer, go, oh, that's so nice. Oh, no. Like you can trust her. Like the guys might be creepy on the island, but like you can trust her. Can you? I'm not going to spoil anything. Another thing that's interesting is, At one point in the movie, Frida, our main character, finds a bunch of Polaroids hidden in a closet of everybody who's visited the island. And it's a lot of old men visiting the island and taking perfume home with them. So this kind of like, date rape perfume, to be honest. And obviously that just kind of reminded me of the many, many men who would come to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Stephen Hawking was there. I remember they put up ramps for him to get around in his wheelchair, and they also customized the submarine on the island so that way he could use the submarine, because Jeffrey Epstein would have these like science conferences on the island where all of these men would come and do stuff. And anyway, the Polaroids just reminded me of that. Now, another big part of this movie is that most of the time they're on the island, they are lounging by the pool, and that's where everything takes place. It's not in the breakfast area. It's not on the tennis courts. The pool is like the main headquarters for them. And we already kind of know of some sickos who have been associated with pool parties and abuse, like everything that happened with Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion. Also too, Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, when Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were going there, the pool was the area that they would recruit these girls. Virginia Giuffre, for example, it was in the locker room pool area that Ghislaine Maxwell first approached her, started talking to her about, have you ever wanted to learn how to do massage and blah, blah, blah. So once again, like all of this weird shit is happening at a pool. Now, the pool on Epstein's island was also the main hangout spot. And we have this from a bunch of different victims. There was a victim, Joanna Schoberg, if that's how you say it. She testified that Epstein once indicated that he had taken a 19-year-old girl's virginity by his pool. Juan Alessi, Jeffrey Epstein's former home manager in Florida, there's all of these different testimonies where it's like Epstein wants coffee by the pool. He wants orange juice out by the pool. Like he was always out by the pool. That's where they were bringing things to him. Alfredo Rodriguez, he was Epstein's butler at the Palm Beach mansion for many years, and he said that he saw nude underage girls at Epstein's pool and that he would have to, routinely wipe down and put away the sex toys by the pool. And then, of course, when they went over to the island on Little St. James, or Little St. Jeff, as he called it, apparently the minute Jeffrey Epstein, they would like fly, I think, from Florida to St. Thomas on the plane, and then they would take a helicopter from St. Thomas to Little St. Jeff. And apparently the minute they would get onto the island, Jeffrey Epstein would go to his private cabana by the pool and then raise a flag up to show that like he's here and he's on the island. And that's because the pool was like the main headquarter place. So Virginia Giuffre, she's one of like the largest kind of like victims in this case. She was with Jeffrey and Ghislaine for a really long time. And when she testified that she saw Bill Clinton on the island and that he spent the night in one of Epstein's houses there, she said she remembers seeing him by the pool. There was also Miles Alexander. Him and his wife Kathy ran the island between 1999 and 2007, and they said, quote, "The girls looked like they had stepped out of an underwear catalog. They walked around with very few clothes on or lounged around by the pool with nothing on. It was like that most of the time. I was concerned about their ages. A few of them looked very young, and I couldn't help but wonder if their mothers knew where they were." Another Epstein employee who worked on the island, this time maintaining the telecom and data equipment, Steve Scully, he said that when he saw Prince Andrew on the island, quote, "It was probably around 2004 that I saw Prince Andrew. He was at the pool. He was with, at that time, an unknown girl to me. She was young. She didn't have any top on. They were engaged in foreplay. He was grabbing her and grinding against her. Years later, he saw a photo of Virginia Giuffre, and he said he was, quote, absolutely certain that the woman he saw with Andrew at the pool was Virginia Giuffre." And then Virginia Giuffre herself said that, quote, his island was a place where orgies were a constant thing that took place, and that she had to perform oral sex on Ghislaine Maxwell in Jeffrey Epstein's presence by the pool. So if you've read through any of these, testimonies and quotes from the victims, as I've done over the years, it's always by the pool where it takes place. And it just kind of was the same in the movie, which stuck out to me because, like Virginia Giuffre said, there were always orgies happening by the pool. That was like a regular thing. Now, it's interesting too that Zoe Kravitz says for the location of the movie, she wanted it to be on an island to kind of represent the Garden of Eden or Lord of the Flies, and to have these characters be really isolated. And part of me can't help but think, is that why so many billionaires also buy islands, to have that sense of isolation? You could say maybe it's for a good thing, they want to get away from prying eyes and just kind of be a normal human. Or you could also say it's for a really bad thing. Like, for example, when one of these girls on Jeffrey Epstein's island tried to escape from the island, she tried swimming because that was the only way to get off. And Ghislaine and Jeff went after her on fucking water jets or whatever, which is like heinous. Also, one of the things that they would do, I guess like another reference that just came to me, if Jeff and Ghislaine thought that any of the girls wanted to leave the island, they would take their passports so they couldn't leave. And in the movie Blink Twice, when everybody gets to the island, all their phones are taken. So just kind of that concept of you're here on an island and we're taking away something from you that you need to get back. All right, so let's kind of explore who else is a billionaire with an island, and should we be looking at them a little bit quizzically? Larry Ellison, he is the co-founder of Oracle. He's been, in a few like business scandals, a few legal disputes. He owns this island in Hawaii. It's the 6th largest island in Hawaii. It's spelled Lanai, maybe Lanai, or Hawaii, maybe Lanny. And he bought it in 2012 for $300 million. Good God. I think at the beginning he only owned 98% of the island, but I believe that he owns 100% of it now. Larry Ellison is, absolutely a billionaire. I mean, he's the co-founder of Oracle. I don't think I can say what I know about him on here publicly, but there was a girl that I spoke to who knew a girl who knew something. What did I say? Okay, for satirical and parody use, because everything I'm saying is alleged and I'm just joking around because it's satire and parody. If you were to think of a 4-letter acronym, A, B, C, D, my initials are SM, something like that, like an acronym. And then you were imagining someone being really into it in a very sinister way. That's what I've heard about him. Who knows what's going on in the island? I would just say, like, at this point in life, after having watched the movie, like done enough research, if you ever meet a billionaire, first of all, stay the fuck away. I don't know why it's like, I can't even read romance books anymore where it's the trope, because I just think that they're all so messed up. If that billionaire says that they have an island, don't you dare go to it. You won't come back alive. You just won't. It's just creepy shit that happens on the island. Another billionaire, Richard Branson, founder of the Virgin Group. He owns Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands. This is really crazy when we talk about money. He is now 73, I think. He bought the island when he was 29 back in 1979, and he paid $180,000 for the island. And then he converted it into this private island resort in 1983. So there's been some sketchy things related to him, some not so. One of the sketchy things, this is in 2017, there was a sexual misconduct allegation. Antonia Janae, she was a singer, and she accused him of inappropriate behavior during a party on his island in 2010. She said that he put his face in her breasts and made an inappropriate remark. Shockingly, that's kind of the only on record sexual misconduct allegation against him. Now, we know of the cult NXIVM. We've done episodes of them before. They have rented out his resort on Necker Island, I believe, twice before. Now, some people say, looking at him in good faith, that anybody can rent out the island and it's totally fine, and he wasn't even really present or around for their parties. Maybe they just wanted to try to recruit him. Somebody in bad faith would say, well, what the fuck are the odds that the island they rent out happens to be his? Who knows what happens? There was a little bit of a connection between Richard Branson and Jeffrey Epstein, but it seems like it may not be true. Sarah Ransom, she was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, and she wrote in 2016 in emails to a reporter saying that she had tapes of sexual acts being committed with minors of Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Sir Richard Branson, and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, when she was kind of pushed on this in 2019, she admitted that she had, quote, invented the tapes to draw attention to Epstein's behavior and make him believe that she had evidence that would come out if he harmed me. Now, I don't know much about this situation. Maybe she had seen something, so then she said that she had tapes because she just wanted the knowledge of like, oh my God, I know that this happened, to be enough to protect her. Or maybe, she just completely lied about names of these people. I feel like if she was saying it to make Jeffrey Epstein think that she actually had the tapes, in my mind, that would probably mean that the acts happened. Because, for example, if Richard Branson was never involved with Jeffrey Epstein whatsoever, you saying, oh, I have a tape of Richard Branson, it's not going to do anything to protect you. But if they had hung out, it would do something to protect you. Now, who knows? Obviously, she said that she invented the tapes, but that's just kind of my take on it. Another billionaire who I believe now is behind bars, who owned an island, and we talked about this over on Patreon for our episode where we talked all about the fountain of youth and billionaires who are trying to reverse age. This is a crazy story, and I just have to say, I am going to sound like an absolute freak. Like, you are going to want to go on Reddit right after this and be like, Shannon McNamara is QAnon. And I get that. But I am reading from articles and he is behind bars and his own son has said things like, I just want to preface and say that it sounds crazy. It is true. So we're going to talk about it. Peter Nygard, he was this fashion exec over in Canada and he made like an ass load of money in Canada and the US. And he ended up buying this island in the Bahamas. Nygard K is what he called it, of course. So he moved to the Bahamas and he started this biotech company and worked with different scientists because he was really into stem cell technology, which is why we were looking into him for the Fountain of Youth episode. He was like trying to lobby the local government down there to create legislation that would further his research. And he was really into injecting himself with stem cells, and he said that he was reverse aging because of this. He made different videos being like, look at me then, look at me now. Like I've gone from, anti-aging to reverse aging, and it's because of all of these like stem cells and these scientific breakthroughs that I'm doing. Now, obviously different scientists were like, this guy's off his rocker. One of the things that he claimed was, quote, "This is huge. This is a game changer. This could eliminate all disease. This perhaps is immortality." And if you know anything about academics and scientists, they were like, okay, this guy's a billionaire, but he's insane. Stem cells cannot make you immortal. Nothing is immortal. But he was really into stem cells. He even went to the World Stem Cell Summit in 2012. And it was a little bit interesting because most of the people at that summit are going to be academics or science folks or researchers. And Peter Nygard showed up like dressed from head to toe in this white suit, surrounded by a bunch of models. And I think, I saw some photos online and it's like a bunch of people at a trade show handing out brochures. And there he is with a bunch of models. And everyone is like, why did he bring models to the World Stem Cell Summit? Maybe this guy is just an eccentric billionaire. Well, in 2020, the FBI and the NYPD do this unsealing of a 9-count indictment charging him with racketeering, sex trafficking, and related crimes from a decades-long pattern of criminal conduct involving at least dozens of victims in the US, the Bahamas, Canada, and other locations. And it comes out that basically the Nygard group over a 25-year period had been hiring fake employees, misusing company funds, and all of these other resources to recruit and maintain these adult and minor-aged women and girls for his, sexual gratification and the gratification of his friends and business associates. It's really nasty, nasty shit. There were all of these like horrible stories about how he would throw these parties and he was deeply, deeply bribing the local government and the police down there in the Bahamas. And he had this whole like rating system. Wait, let me find this here. Yeah. So each girl that came to his party, and he had this like very gaudy, like big, like tiki mansion, that he would throw these parties at. And every girl that would came in would get photographed and entered into his personal database. And he rated them upon entry, A, B, C, or D, with obviously A being the most beautiful. And throughout the night at these parties, he would ask a particular girl if she wanted to stay the night. And if he said no, he would drug her. It would either be him doing it or it would be the bartenders who would slip things into girls' drinks. And we have housekeepers on record saying, like, I saw the bartenders slip pills into a girl's drink, blah, blah, blah. She said to this housekeeper that there was one girl who tried to escape from the property and then she was just brought back by the police against her will because he paid off all of these people. Now, if that isn't heinous and awful enough, this is I saw a video of this, and I know it's going to sound crazy when I say it. I know I'm going to sound insane, but I saw a video, and I'll link in the show notes if I can, the video. He would go up to women and he would coerce them to be his quote unquote girlfriend, right? Obviously they're a victim. He would get them pregnant by either removing the condom, not wearing one, saying that his tubes were tied, things like that. These girlfriends of his, once again in quotes, would get pregnant. He would force them to get an abortion, and then he would use the stem cells from those abortions and eject them into himself. And I just want to preface, I am pro-choice. I'm not trying to say any of this is like, I know how crazy this sounds. The video is insane. It's this video of Peter and like a business associate of his at this table with these like beautiful, is it Bohemian? If you're from the Bahamas. Anyway, these beautiful women around the table with him, and they're like clearing away the plates as Peter is saying to these women or girls, I don't know how fucking old they are, quote, that Black women have superior eggs, that period blood has stem cells in it, and that abortions are even better for stem cells because of the placenta and the umbilical cord and all of this shit like that. I don't know how true it is. Okay, I haven't looked into this. I think I have heard that period blood has stem cells in it, but they're not the type of stem cells that can like really help you with anything. I mean, it's dead blood coming out of you.
The stem cell technology that Peter and I are investing in is called SCNT, which takes the egg of a young, perfect woman specimen, takes the egg and takes out the nucleus and puts our DNA in the nucleus. And this is part of this genetic greatness that we don't see in any other race on the planet. These curvy, sexy Black women from Africa. You girls have a kind of a monopoly on this genetic perfection, and we want some of that. For $100, we would pay you for your egg.
No, you $100? Monkey. You can get paid a lot more than that.
So how much do you want for it? Let's bid. I bid $500. $60,000 for the eggs. Yeah. If you have abortion, that's very valuable. Umbilical cord, and placenta, even your period blood is so rich with stem cells. When you regard it as waste, then it actually should be. It should be captured as recycled, and it shouldn't go to waste. It's life for somebody,
Anyway, I think a lot of people aren't talking about this, and this isn't as big of a deal as the Jeffrey Epstein thing, because I have done the research into it and I have watched the videos, and I feel like a psychotic person saying this into a microphone. Like, I feel like my reputation's going to be like soured forever. But this is on record. And there was, let's see, one of his girlfriends, Sulin Medeiros, she put out a memoir in 2014 about a trip that she took with Peter Nygard to Ukraine, where he was doing stem cell research. And she even says, quote, he asked, Sulin, do you know what the best stem cells are, she writes. She did, embryos. Correct, she says, Nygard responded. If you got pregnant and had an abortion, we could use those embryonic cells and have a life supply for all of us. You, your mother, and me. A lot of people are doing it. I know this sounds crazy. Please don't think that I'm a wacko, but this is wacko shit. This is like insane stuff. And what's really crazy too is that when I was doing the research for this back for the Fountain of Youth episode, what I found really odd is that, I mean, obviously he's behind bars now. Like, this guy is guilty. He was charged for sex trafficking. But even though I saw the video of him speaking to the women about getting abortions, and even though one of his girlfriends is on record in a memoir saying this, there weren't any news articles covering it. And I feel like I know why, because obviously Obviously, it's a touchy subject. But it's just fucking weird. And it kind of makes me want to go to the next, Stem Cell World Summit and be like, what are you guys doing over here? What are you doing over here? So anyway, even though I probably sound like a nutter, this happened. It is crazy. It is sick. His own son, too, Peter Nygard's son, came out and made a comment about all of this. And he said that his father had more accusations than, quote, Epstein, Weinstein, and Cosby combined. And that's his own son saying it. And apparently his son worked for the company, but then his son found out like what happened. So he tried to turn his dad in, and his dad just like completely shoved him out of the picture and stuff. To say that your own father has more accusations than Epstein, Weinstein, and Cosby combined, like I don't know how more people aren't talking about Peter Nygard. It's just like, ugh. And of course, he also had his own island. What the fuck is up with these people? Okay, well, the next thing I want to talk about is the Cosby references in the movie Blink Twice. And this was something that was interesting to me because Zoe Kravitz obviously put this movie together. Her mother, Lisa Bonet, was on The Cosby Show as Denise Huxtable. So I don't know how much Zoe has talked to her mother about like how close she was to Bill Cosby or anything. But of course, Bill Cosby was known for drugging women to rape them. And what happened in this movie on the island, they would drug the girls with this perfume and this flower and, you know, do the unspeakable to them. So I just thought that this was kind of another interesting, I'm sure Zoe Kravitz doesn't want to say if she got inspiration from him, if she did for this. But I mean, this is all stuff that's on record. So once again, over 60 women have come forward to accuse Bill Cosby. And that's only over 60 women who have come forward. So you know that there's more. And not only do they accuse Bill Cosby of sexual abuse, sexual assault, all of these different allegations, they almost always talk about some sort of drug being involved in it too. Quaaludes were the drug that was like most frequently cited in all of these accusations. Quaaludes, Bill Cosby admitted himself. It was a 2005 deposition, and he admitted that he obtained Quaaludes with the intent of giving them to women that he wanted to have sex with. Now, he said in the fucking deposition that he didn't drug anyone, but he did acquire 7 prescriptions of Quaaludes with the intent to give the sedatives to young women he wanted to have sex with. Such assholes, these people. And do you want to know, by the way, who prescribed the Quaaludes to him? It was a gynecologist and cosmetic surgeon, Leroy Amar. Other drugs that also came up in all these different allegations were benzos, Valium, Xanax, things like that. A lot of the women allege that Bill Cosby gave them pills that made them feel drowsy or unable to move. A lot of those things are consistent with using benzos. Another one was antihistamines. I remember being confused when Benadryl was a name that kept coming up, but several different women claimed that Bill Cosby gave them pills that he described as antihistamines to help them relax, but the pills caused them to become incapacitated. So they were like, I don't think it's actually an antihistamine. Maybe it was spiked with something stronger. Maybe it's the fact that it was like mixed with alcohol. And a lot of these drugs were mixed with alcohol. So anyway, just like awful stuff. But once again, it's a theme in Blink Twice of drugging women to be able to abuse them. So, you know, I couldn't help but think of like Bill Cosby. There's other different references, kind of like more so conspiracy related, symbolic related throughout the film. I told you that the main girl, she paints animals on her nails. That's kind of like her thing. She has an Instagram account and she's always doing different animals on her nails. And when she first gets to the island, everybody is like, red rabbit, because at one point she had a red rabbit on her nails. And that shouting of red rabbit is kind of like this thing that pops up in conspiracy lore, because the white rabbit, not the red one, but the white rabbit is a phrase that appears a lot. Obviously, this comes from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where she follows a white rabbit down a rabbit hole and then it leads her into this strange world. So the phrase of like follow the white rabbit usually is said by people saying like, oh, if you keep digging, if you keep trying to discover things, you might unveil these secrets or this hidden knowledge, things that are kind of obscured from the public. So if somebody says follow the white rabbit, sometimes there's a little bit of a conspiracy edge to it. Now, another interesting thing is the color red. There's all these red gift bags that the billionaire on the island gives away to people. Oh, you came to my island, take a red gift bag. Here's a red gift bag for you. And inside the red gift bag is the flower perfume that makes your memory disappear. Now, obviously, red is just kind of a little bit of a freaky deaky color. So if you see a bunch of red bags on the floor, you're going to be like, could it be blood? Could it be danger? But I think the symbolism of that color red is just always very interesting. Like red is a color that shows you threats, danger, even a red stoplight, like it's telling you to stop and like be aware or something. So it kind of symbolizes this warning about either danger, being ahead, or you needing to pay more attention to hidden threats or the situation being very, very urgent. Obviously, red is also associated with like blood, which could be something violent, something harmful. And then we have the color red in terms of the Matrix. Are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill? You take the red pill and you break free from mental control or something like that. So that's something that a lot of people could see as well throughout the movie. All right, so I want to apologize too, because this was a heavy episode. Like, these aren't fun things to talk about. And honestly, the movie wasn't fun to watch. Like, parts of it were interesting. It's always nice seeing a beautiful island. It's always interesting, seeing how movies are put together. But the main scene that I'm talking about was so violent and graphic that it really took any joy from the movie away from me. And it also made me think about Epstein and Cosby and all of this stuff. And I feel like the only time you get to really relax during a horror or a thriller movie, or at least for me, is when I watch it and I go, well, it's all made up. I'm watching Stranger Things and it's a little bit creepy, but I know that there's a boom mic behind this child and everything's going to be fine. And I know that Freddy Krueger isn't actually real and I can go to sleep tonight without worrying that he's going to come for me. But with a movie like this, and I know she said it wasn't related to Epstein or anything like that, you aren't able to say, well, this never happens, so it's going to be okay. Because it does. It's happened before. It will happen again. And like sickeningly, it's probably happening right now. So anyway, I just wanted to shout out a few of the names of people that have been associated with Jeffrey Epstein and are not behind bars. Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer. Kevin Spacey, the actor. Prince Andrew, the fucking prince, Naomi Campbell, the model, and Jez Staley, the former JP Morgan executive. Obviously, these people have all been questioned about their relation to Epstein, and despite having been with Epstein when victims and underage boys and girls were with them, these people are still out and about, in various different ways. Jez Staley, of course, is like getting taken to the courts and, they're suing him and there's all of this legal drama that he's in. But, Prince Andrew is not behind bars. Alan Dershowitz is not behind bars. Kevin Spacey is actively trying to come back into the industry. And I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of, is it Andrew Huberman or was it Lex Friedman? There's basically this whole group of like podcasting men who talk about self-improvement or do interviews. They're maybe like in the Joe Rogan circuit or that kind of self-improvement. God, who was it? I think it might have been Peter Attia. He has a podcast and he talks a lot about health stuff. And they have been hanging out with Kevin Spacey recently and posting photos of it on Instagram. Let me pull it up to make sure it is Peter Attia. Yeah, it's Peter Attia. This was back May 30th. They posted a picture of them like all hanging out with Kevin Spacey. Last night, my brother and dear friends Evan Lowenstein and Kevin Spacey came over for dinner and a hang session, like blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, ha, ha, ha. And they're like interviewing him on podcasts and stuff. And of course, they're getting completely cooked in the comments. And everyone is like, are you fucking kidding me? Hanging out with Kevin Spacey? And I will say, as hard as it was to watch that scene and blink twice where the girls are getting abused on the island, I want to download that scene and like go protest Hollywood, and like any movie that puts Kevin Spacey in the movie, just show them that scene and be like, you have to watch this 10 times before you decide to work with Kevin Spacey. Because I think some things are so hard to talk about and so hard to imagine because they're just so like horrific, that it's almost so horrific that like you put it out of your mind because you like don't even want to think about it, and it's easier to kind of plug the ears and go like la 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 la. So anyway, I just think it's massively disappointing that Kevin Spacey, Armie Hammer, all of these fuckers are like trying to come back in, and they're propped up typically by conservative people who are like, Me Too went too far, like this was actually consensual, or she said she wanted it and then she like changed her mind after. And it's just so infuriating and heart-wrenching. And I would be remiss to say, like, there's so many different scenes of violence towards women in movies and TV shows. And I was talking to Xander about that, and I was like, you know, not that I want to see it, but are there pieces of media where men are getting abused by women? Like, even, for example, in Gone Girl, where every man is like, oh my God, Gone Girl is like the scariest thing to happen to you. I mean, was he getting abused? Was he getting, I don't want to say it, but like, was he getting like deeply abused? And then Xander said, I think in like Pulp Fiction, there's a scene like that. I haven't seen Pulp Fiction. And I was like, was it a woman doing it to a man though? And he said, no, it was a man doing it to another man. I remember watching The Kite Runner growing up, a man doing it to a boy. Like, it's just hard to watch. It's disheartening. It's demoralizing. And I'm kind of curious on a bigger sense, why are we putting out so much content related to it? Would it be that awful to make a fucking rom-com? To make a rom-com, but you know, it ends with us and blink twice and go out to see it because we're playing with puppies and my hair care line and all of this stuff. It's just starting to feel really dystopian and super sad. And I mean, I'm not helping because this was also a really, really sad episode. So I am sorry for making everything so very dark, but that was just a little bit about the movie. Have you seen Blink Twice? Let me know what you thought about it. Like, did you think it was a good movie from a directing standpoint, from an acting standpoint? What do you think about Zoe Kravitz saying that like she wrote this over 7 years? Why did she make Channing Tatum play the part of this abuser? Look, the whole thing's confusing to me, but that's Hollyweird for you. That is Hollyweird. So let me know what you think about all of this, and let's pray for some fucking rom-coms in the fall, you know? I hope Wicked has some like good musical numbers to it or something. So thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you next week for a much, much happier episode of Fluently Forward, and we will talk soon. Bye, guys.